42 kill all Yellowjackets and Wasps for 1-2 mile. Safe for honeybees. It's late August on the back porch. The grass is dry. A sweating can of soda sits on the rail. Somewhere near your elbow, you hear that low, dry hum, the one that doesn't sound like a honeybee at all. Your granddaughter is barefoot on the boards. Then comes the cry, a red welt the size of a nickel rising on the soft side of her foot. Your wife reaches for the baking soda. You stand there holding a fly swatter that never killed a wasp in its life. There's a way to pull those Yellowjackets clean off your property, not from 20 feet, from well past the tree line, past the back fence, from further out than you'd believe. And it leaves the honeybees alone, every single one of them. Costs about $3, takes about 10 minutes, and nobody at the hardware store is going to tell you about it. Before we get into it, if you're the sort of person who'd rather hang a jar than call a man in a truck, pull up a chair, and stay a while, there's a comment waiting for you at the bottom of this one I'd like to hear your answer to. And if what we talk about on this porch sounds like your kind of common sense, the bell up there keeps you in the circle. No hard sell. Just neighbors comparing notes on what actually works. You felt the summer turn, haven't you? June was fine. The wasps minded their own business, building their little gray paper lanterns up under the eaves, ignoring the picnic table. Then somewhere around the first week of August, something changed. They got bold, they got mean, they started landing on the rim of your glass before you'd even sat down. The dog won't go near the back step. The grandkids learn to keep their shoes on, and every year, it seems, the season gets a little longer and the swarms get a little thicker than the year before. It isn't your imagination. Late summer is when these colonies hit their peak. A single Yellowjacket nest in the ground out by the woodpile can hold 3,000 or 4,000 workers by August, and every one of them is hungry, restless, and looking further from home than they were 2 months ago. They aren't building anymore. They're feeding. And the warmer your part of the country, the longer that hungry stretch runs. Some folks down south are dealing with it clear into November now. That's the part nobody on the evening news mentions. Now here's what most people do. They drive into town, they walk past the lawnmowers and the birdseed, and they stop at that yellow shelf, the one with the plastic traps shaped like little lanterns and the spray cans with the cartoon hornet on the side. $14 here, $11 there. They take the receipt home, hang the trap on the shepherd's hook, and stand back like they've done something. A week later, the wasps are still on the soda can and the trap. Well, we'll get to what's inside that trap in a minute because it's worse than useless. I want to tell you about a neighbor down the road. Call him Earl. He keeps 4 hives behind a tin-roofed shed, white boxes stacked too high, the kind of bees that have been working his clover for years. Earl had the same wasp trouble you and I have. Last August, he hung 2 of those yellow store traps out near the... 2 weeks later, he opened them up to dump them out. The bottom of each one was black, packed solid with dead honeybees, his own honeybees. 2 wasps floating on top. He stood there in the dirt and he didn't say a word for a long minute. That's the part of this story that ought to make a grown man quiet. The traps on that shelf don't know the difference between the bug that's stinging your grandchild and the bug that's pollinating your beans. They were built by the kind of company that profits whether they kill the right insect or the wrong one, because either way, you're back at the shelf in October buying another. The label says wasp. The chemistry inside says anything with wings and a sweet tooth. And the honeybee, God bless her, has the sweetest tooth in the field. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a real plain biological reason, older than your grandfather, older than the hardware store, older than the whole pesticide aisle, that wasps and bees can be told apart by what they want to eat. And once you understand that one thing, you can pull every Yellowjacket on your property toward one spot and leave the honeybees working the clover by the back step like nothing ever happened. The trick isn't the poison. The trick isn't the trap. The trick is what's hanging inside it. And it's something you've already got in your kitchen right now. I'll tell you the other piece too, because it matters. Tradition holds that the old farmers up in Pennsylvania and down through the Shenandoah didn't fight wasps the way we do. They didn't spray a thing. They hung a coffee can off a fence post with baling wire, punched a few holes in the lid, and they went on about their hay. Nobody was stung at the dinner table, nobody lost a hive, and nobody paid $385 to a man in a logo shirt to come walk the property line and tell them what they already knew. Because here's what's underneath all of this, and it's the part you won't hear from anybody trying to sell you something. The wasp's diet changes with the calendar. What she's hunting in June is not what she's hunting in August. And the bee, the honeybee, never crosses over to that other side of the menu. Not once, not ever, not in her whole short life. That single fact is the whole door we're about to walk through. And once you see it, you'll never look at the shelf at the hardware store the same way again. Pick up one of those yellow plastic traps off the shelf and read the back of it, not the front. The front is cartoons and exclamation marks. The back is the truth in small print. What you'll find 9 times out of 10 is a sweet attractant, sugar water, fruit syrup, a little fermented something to give it that pull from a distant smell. That's the bait. That's the whole science of it. And that right there is the exact thing a honeybee was put on this earth to find. She can smell sugar from a long way off. She doesn't know it's a trap. She just knows the field is calling. So the bee flies in, she crawls down the little yellow funnel. She can't crawl back out, the shape's against her. She drowns in the soup at the bottom. Meanwhile, the yellow jacket, who in August doesn't even want sugar all that badly, mostly ignores the thing. You get 1 or 2 wasps for show. You get 100 dead pollinators you'll never see, because they came from a hive a quarter-mile away that you didn't even know was there. The trap worked exactly as designed. It just wasn't designed for what the label promised. Now the spray can is a different kind of foolishness. The spray can ask you to find the nest first. Find it, walk up to it, and stand close enough to hit it with a stream of poison, while 3,000 angry workers come boiling out the hole. Folks have been hurt doing this, badly hurt. And let's say you do it right, and you do get the queen. Congratulations, you've handled 1 nest within 20 feet of your back door. Meanwhile, there are 8 more colonies foraging your tomatoes from somewhere over the hill, and you'll never find them because their front doors are tucked under a rock you'll never turn over. I had a man come out 2 summers ago. Pickup truck, logo on the door. Walked the property with a clipboard, didn't even get out his sprayer, just looked. The quote he handed me was $385 for a single visit, and the contract he wanted me to sign was 4 visits a year. $1,500, near enough to set the same kind of traps you and I just talked about, only his were green instead of yellow. I thanked him. I shook his hand. I watched the truck go down the drive, and I sat on the porch a long while thinking about how my grandfather would have laughed. My grandfather kept a row of beehives along the south side of his orchard. He kept a garden the size of a small parking lot. He was outdoors from first light to dark all summer, and in all the years I knew him, I never once saw him swat at a wasp at the dinner table. Not once. He had a coffee can, Folgers red. I can still see the rust line where the lid sat, hanging off a locust post out past the smokehouse on a twist of baling wire, holes punched in the top with a 16-penny nail, and whatever was inside, that can did the work of every spray can and every plastic trap a hardware store ever sold. He never explained it to me. Countrymen of that generation didn't sit you down and teach. They let you watch and they let you figure. And the thing I finally figured, years after he was gone, is that he understood something about wasps that the label on the can in the garage never bothered to mention. He understood that what a yellow jacket wants in May is not what she wants in August. He understood that her appetite turns, sharp and sudden, somewhere around the dog days. And he understood that the honeybee, his honeybee, our honeybee, never turns at all. I'll give it a name so it sticks with you. Call it the August turn. In the early part of the year, a wasp colony is feeding babies. Babies need protein, the same as any baby on this earth. So the workers go out hunting, meat, bugs, scavenge scraps off the side of the road. By late summer, the babies are mostly grown, the colony is at its biggest, and the workers' own appetites shift towards sugar. That's when they get in your soda can and your jelly jar. But underneath all of it, all season long, the protein hunger is still there, because the colony is still feeding new young, and that hunger is the door. Now, before I show you the door, I want to say something honest. No method on this earth gets every wasp on your property. Not this one, not any. If you've got a ground nest right by the back step, you'll still have to handle that nest directly, and you'll want to do it after dark when the workers are home and calm, and you'll want to wear long sleeves, and you'll want to have a plan to get away. The jar we're about to build will pull the foragers, the ones cruising your yard from somewhere out past the fence. It won't suck a nest out of the dirt by your foundation. Anybody tells you different is selling you something. Here's what my grandfather knew that the label on the can doesn't. Here it is, plain as a fence post. A honeybee is a vegetarian. Her whole short life, from the first day she leaves the hive to the last, she eats nectar and pollen, flowers, sweet things off a bloom. She does not eat meat. She does not land on a piece of fish. She does not crawl on a chicken bone. It is not in her. It is not in her mother's mother's mother. A wasp, on the other hand, is a hunter. She feeds her young on protein, and all summer long her colony is sending her out looking for it. That single difference in appetite is the whole secret. That is the door. So what we do is this. We hang out a bait that a wasp cannot resist, and a honeybee will not even slow down to inspect. Raw fish works. A scrap of liver works. A spoonful of cheap canned cat food, the kind with fish or chicken in it, works just as well, and it's what most folks have closest at hand. You put that protein out where the wind can carry the scent, and the yellowjackets find it from a long way off. The honeybees fly past it like it isn't there. In my experience, many homesteaders find one good station works the whole back 40 and then some, pulling in foragers from well past where you can see. Here's the build. Take a wide-mouth jar, a clean coffee can, an old plastic pail, anything you've got. Pour about 1.5 inches of water in the bottom and stir in a good squirt of plain dish soap. The soap breaks the surface tension. A wasp that touches that water sinks. She doesn't float and fly off. Now take your protein, a piece of fish about the size of your thumb is plenty, and hang it from a wire or a string so it dangles just above the water. Not in it, above it. You want her to land on it, feed, and try to fly off heavy. She drops, she drowns, quiet work. The lid matters more than people think. You want her to be able to find her way in and not find her way out. A simple trick, take the lid, punch 4 or 5 holes the size of a dime around the edge with a nail, and leave the center solid. She crawls in along the edge to get to the smell. When she tries to leave, she flies straight up and bumps the underside of the lid instead of finding the holes. Falls back down, hits the water. Done. No poison, no spray, no expensive cartridge to replace. Just a jar, a wire, a scrap of fish, and the soap from under your sink. Now where you hang it is half the battle. Shoulder height in the shade, at least 20 or 30 feet off from where you sit. Wasps follow scent on the wind, so put the jar on the upwind side of the porch. Let the smell drift away from you and out into the yard. 3 jars spread around the edges of your property will do more work than 10 jars clustered in one spot. 1 out by the garden, 1 out past the woodpile, 1 down where the field meets the trees. The further you space them, the bigger the net you're casting. And by August, that net is reaching further than you'd believe. That's where the half-mile talk comes in. I won't tell you a wasp flies a flat half-mile every trip, because nobody can prove that to you on paper. What I'll tell you is what happens when the colony is hungry and the weather is hot. The workers go further than they would in June, much further. A protein station hung in the right spot, with the right wind, in the right week of August, pulls foragers in from acres away, past the tree line, past the back fence, from nests you didn't know existed. By the 2nd day, the jar is humming. By the 4th day, it's quiet around the porch. That's what you came for. 1 honest hedge before we go further. When the nights start getting cold, late September into October, depending on where you live, the wasp's appetite shifts back towards sugar. The colony is dying off. The workers are looking for one last sweet meal before frost. If you keep a protein jar out then, it'll work less and less. And if you swap over to a fermented fruit bait at that point, which some folks do for the last few stragglers, your honeybees will take an interest. So pull the jars in by mid-October or move them well away from any hives on the place. That's the rule. Respect it, and you'll never lose a bee to your own hand. Now I want you to picture that porch again. Same boards, same dry grass, same can of soda sweating on the rail, only this time the jar is swinging quiet out past the woodpile. The clover by the back step is full of honeybees doing their honest work. Your granddaughter's barefoot again, and nobody is crying. Your wife brings out the lemonade and sits down beside you. The fly swatter stays on the hook by the door, $3, 10 minutes, a scrap of fish, and the meanest insect on your property pulled clean off the place by something your grandfather would have nodded at without saying a word. Here's what I'd like from you before you go. Tell me about the worst wasp summer you ever lived through, what year it was, what state you were in, and what, if anything, finally turned the corner. I read every one of them, and there's always one or two in the comments that teach me something I didn't know. And if you're the kind of person who'd rather hang a jar than call a man in a truck, you already know where you fit around this porch. Stick around. There's a chair here for you. Next time we'll talk about the one smell that empties a hornet's nest out of a barn eave overnight. No spray, no ladder, no fire, quiet hands, steady work. That's the whole of it.